Okay, hello everyone. Mr. K here again. We're going to talk about preventative maintenance today, and I call it part one because this is only beginning. This is going to be visual inspection and kind of a how-to presentation, and we're not going to dig into anything too crazy here. This is going to be the goal of this is that you use minimal tools, really just flashlight and an inspection mirror and your eyes and your nose and your senses, and you should be able to do quite a bit, probably more than you think you can, to dig into a car and figure out if it's going to something bad's going to happen, like what you see in the photo. All right. So we're going to talk about what is preventative maintenance. What does that mean? We're going to talk about different parts of the vehicle that need it and how to inspect those parts without doing anything really that costs a lot of money. Okay, preventative maintenance. So, in short, I'm just going to say that basically that means doing a little bit of work now to save you a lot of work or a lot of money later. Go ahead and watch this video at this time, and that should give you a little more practical examples of it. Okay, you should have just watched that video, preventative maintenance, Goss's garage. Hopefully that gives you a little better idea of what exactly preventative maintenance is. Okay, preventative maintenance can come in a variety of things. It can include visual inspection, just looking at stuff under the car, looking for cracks, looking for leaks, looking for bolts that are missing or rattled out. It can involve fluid checks or changes. So sometimes pulling dipsticks, looking at fluid, pulling fill plugs, looking at the fluid level, changing fluid. That's form preventive maintenance. Code reading. So you're plugging a code reader or a scanner into a vehicle, and you're seeing what kind of codes it has. If the codes have been wiped or the battery's been disconnected, you're looking at what type of history codes it has saved, so you can see what was wrong with it at one point in time. Cleaning components can be another form of preventive maintenance, cleaning them out before they get too sludge covered and they malfunction. And of course, adjusting and checking settings. Okay. Hopefully when this picture comes on the screen, you're immediately cringing, or even if you're not cringing, maybe you're saying something doesn't look right there. That just doesn't look like a Ford or Chevy would have done that. Well, that's probably because they didn't. um, that's not right. Okay, even if you know nothing about axles or CV axle boots, you can probably look at that and say that just doesn't look right. Okay, here's a drum brake setup that's covered in grease, probably has a blown out axle seal. Okay, again, just looks kind of funny to have those parts covered in grease. Doesn't look like they probably would have done that from the factory. There's probably something wrong there. Okay, for visual inspections, the goal is that there's very little disassembly required or none. You can just use basic tools in your senses. We kind of talked about that. Inspection mirror and a good flashlight, and just look for things that are out of place. Okay, my first category of places to look, I'm going to tell you, is anything that moves. Just look at anything that moves. Okay, tires, that is a very bald tire. That's unsafe. It's also illegal. Brakes, those move, right? It's a common wear item too. Without even taking the wheel off on new cars, a lot of times you can see things like, are the pads too thin, worn out? Does the rotor have grooves in it? What if I put it on here? Yes, I did put discoloration. Okay, if you look on a brake rotor, you might see sort of a rainbow effect. Sometimes it looks a lot of purple and blue spots or waves in the rotor. That means it's been overheated. Okay, again, we're just using our eyes. Serpentine belt moves, right? Pulleys move. See any cracks in the belt? Splits. Is it squealing? Another thing is, are these pulleys wobbling? Do they seem cockeyed? Okay, there's a lot you can do with this. Look at things that move. Okay. This is a good one. Suspension pieces that move. Of course, you can look for cracks in the rubber boots, but also, are there noises when you drive it and you turn the wheel? Are there noises when you spin the wheel by hand when the car is jacked up? Again, no tools needed for this. Before I put anything else on the screen, hopefully something's catching your eye here. There's there's moisture here. There's splotches of something on top of this axle right here. That should be catching your eye right away, saying, where did that come from? What is that? Why is it there? Doesn't look like water to me. I don't think the guy just drove through a puddle. Tires are dry, right? Rest of the axle's dry. That's coming from somewhere that it shouldn't be. Another thing look for is rust. When I say rust, surface rust is not bad, but you're looking for severe structural rust, something that looks like it could rip a bolt through the frame. It could snap a piece off. Okay, and this takes a little experience to figure out exactly what's okay and what's not okay, but it's another thing you want to watch for. Don't overthink it. I want to keep driving that into your head. Just look for stuff that doesn't look right. If it looks out of place, it probably is. If you're not sure, ask your boss, ask a friend, take a picture of it and post it online to a website. Take a picture of it and text it to a friend who works on cars, but just keep your eyes open when you're doing this stuff. Don't overthink it. All right, let's talk about my next category, things that hold fluids, things to inspect, okay? So in this picture, you can see a radiator. There's antifreeze in there. You can see radiator hose. Here's some fuel lines. Inside the engine holds oil, right? There's valve covers. So start looking at things that hold fluid. And we're looking for drips, abnormal corrosion. Example of that would be if a battery overflows, there's battery acid or sulfuric acid spills onto the vehicle frame. That is going to cause a lot of rust in those areas. And of course, if it's a hot liquid of some kind or it's flammable, look for smoke and steam. While we're talking about things that hold fluids, let's talk about looking at dipsticks. Okay, if you pull, you should always pull the dipstick on an engine and transmission and really power steering also, although those rarely need anything. But pull the dipstick on an engine and it should look something like one of these. Okay, ideally you want it to look like this on the left, but it probably won't. It'll probably look like on the far right. Those are normal. Those are normal colors. Okay, yes, if it looks black, you probably need to change the oil. Those are normal though. If you see something that looks like chocolate milk, that's not normal. That would mean there's water getting in the oil. Okay, and I should have put a picture on here of that and I didn't, but that would be a red flag if you see chocolate milk colored. You can smell it too. Does it smell like gasoline? It should smell very slightly of gas, but not strong. If it smells strong, your oil is either way past the oil change point or you've got a problem with the motor. Transmission dipsticks. This is extremely important if you're looking at a used car. You want to find out if transmission is going to last much longer. This is a very true chart, okay? When transmission fluid's brand new, it's going to be a nice light or a nice like a dark pink, light red color. As it wears, it's going to get darker and darker. Most of the vehicles you're going to look at and drive and that type of thing are going to be in this range. That's like the 100,000 mile era of fluid color, okay? That's okay. It's not the end of the world. Don't forget to smell it though. You should always smell transmission fluid dipstick. And as funny as that sounds, it's very valuable if it smells burnt, and it will be kind of a pungent burnt smell. If it smells burnt, your transmission is not going to last much longer. Okay, here are some different transmission fluids laid out on a napkin. So if you pull a transmission dipstick and you dab the end of that onto paper towel, it should look like one of these. It's probably going to look like the middle one. Just experience tells us that. Hopefully it looks like the right one, but it's probably going to look like the middle one, okay? If it looks black like that, you've got big problems and your transmission is not going to last much longer. I would call that failing the visual inspection if it looks like that. Okay, on to other things that hold fluid. Here's a picture of an oil pan in a transmission case. Right away, it should jump out at you. You see there's little drips forming here that are about to drip, okay? Looks black to me. It's probably engine oil. That should tell you something. That should tell you there's a seal or there's a gasket leaking. Here's a transfer case. If you don't know what a transfer case is, that is what connects to the transmission and allows a truck to be four-wheel drive. It allows a second drive shaft to be attached and go forward. This looks pretty good to me. This would be an example of a transfer case that I don't think has any leaks. Okay, that looks real good. That's what they should look like. Okay, hopefully this jumps out at you. This doesn't look right. Okay, I don't know what it is. I'm assuming it's gear oil. I don't know where it came from. I'm guessing somewhere in here. It doesn't matter. The point is there's a defect there. There's a problem. Note that. My last category we're going to talk about today is rubber and plastic items. And this is just kind of the last thing I came up with to help you catch everything else that's not a moving part that you're looking at, and isn't a fluid capsule, I guess, or a fluid item that you're looking at. Okay, go ahead and pause the video at this point in time and watch this video: serpentine belt and radiator hose maintenance. Okay, you should have just watched that video. So at this point, the next thing I want to talk about is, let's jump right into it. Let's look at belts. Here's an example of a new belt next to an old belt, and you can see all these little cracks. That's what you're looking for in a serpentine belt, or I should say that's one of the things. But the point is, it doesn't look normal, right? It doesn't look like the factory would have done that. Keep that in mind. Okay. Plastic. Wire insulations, plastic, right? Typically. Notice these are not clean cuts from wire strippers. These are jagged and they're coming apart. Okay, that plastic is deteriorated and it's exposing the bare copper. Of course, that's not what we want. Keep your eye open for that. This is also extremely common. Okay, old engines have old plastic insulated wires. The insulation gets brittle. As the engine vibrates, that plastic cracks and opens up like this. Okay, keep an eye out for those. That is a red flag. Those wires could touch something and short out. All right, while we're talking about wires and wire insulation, spark plug wires have very high voltage in them. So about 10,000 volts, let's say, because this ignition coil boosts it up to that. So if the insulation's bad or there's a crack in this rubber, it will arc right out of that to the frame or to any ground. At this point, go ahead and pause my video and play the first 40 seconds of this video. Arcing spark plug wires on a 65 Mustang. Okay, you should have just watched that video, and that gives you an idea of what happens when you might miss a crack on a visual inspection of one of these boots. At this point in time, jump on your assignment on visual inspections. All right, have a good day.